If you're a new player or DM, your first challenge is going to be filling out those character sheets. The typical Dungeons & Dragons character sheet has a lot going on. But if you're a DM for kids or you're a kid yourself, our first suggested adaptation is going to be simplifying those character sheets. The main idea is to keep it simple, smarties. This is the adaptation that is going to give your campaign with kids the chef's kiss of perfection. Let's get into it.
We definitely recommend that you, the DM, help the player create a full character sheet using the normal character creation process, but when it comes time to play, you should keep the full character sheet with you behind the screen for reference, while you give them a simplified character sheet. There are 3 big reasons we like to simplify character sheets for kids and for first-time players. First, the game's supposed to be fun, not a literacy test. The complicated character sheets that you find in a game like Dungeons & Dragons are awesome for veterans who want to get into the nuances of role-playing and world-building, but for someone who's just starting out, a sheet like this acts as a barrier to play. And if we want kids to enjoy something, we have to minimize those barriers to enjoyment. Second, a simpler character sheet reduces the problem of analysis paralysis. The sheer amount of information on a typical character sheet can be overwhelming, and they're not often designed so that newbies know exactly where to look for their most important skills. By simplifying the character sheet, we're simplifying their choices, helping players to build confidence with a few things before getting into the more advanced things. And third, simplifying encourages engagement. A player is more likely to engage with the story, the puzzles, and the battles if they're not having to constantly stare at their character sheet looking for something that might help them with their current situation. For newbies, simpler is better.
So, you're going to simplify that character sheet, but what should you include on it? The following recommendations are for kid players about ages 6 and up. If you have younger kid players at your table, we have further simplifications that we'd recommend later. For kid players 6 and up, at the top of your character sheet, list your most commonly referenced statistics: hit points, armor class, initiative bonus, perception, and if you're using a map, your speed. If you're only using theater of the mind, you can skip speed. Next, list your main attack. This is your main weapon, or if you're playing something like a Dragonborn, you will list your breath weapon. Only list 1 or 2 of the most commonly used attacks. Next, if you're a spellcasting class, list a few spells, but you don't need to list as many as the player's handbook allows. This helps the player not become overwhelmed with choices. We like to list about 2 cantrips and 2 level 1 spells per player, if that's allowed for their class and level. We also recommend that the DM helps the player choose the spells both for ease and simplification of use and for variety of application. So your player feels like they have something effective they can do both in battle, in roleplay, and to support their team. Next, list your best skills, which is essentially your proficiencies. Any of your character's skills that have the highest bonus that are going to give them the most likely chance of success in a given scenario. When a player is approaching a problem and if they don't know what to do, we like to tell them to take a look at their best skills for ideas of what might work for that character. However, if they have an idea that doesn't fit the bill of one of those skills, just ask the DM. The DM can then reference the full character sheet behind the screen to tell them what bonus to use in that case. We never want to limit a kid's creativity in this situation, but we also don't want to overwhelm them with choices. Finally, list 1 or 2 special abilities. These are usually associated with your species or your class. Things like Second Wind, Sneak Attack, and Wild Shape.
So if that's what we're keeping, then what are we leaving out? Remember, you, the DM, are keeping the player's full character sheet behind the screen. So if your player really wants to do something that isn't on the simplified sheet, you've got the more complex stuff ready to go. But usually, these are the sorts of things that will distract players either with visual noise on the page or complex mechanics that they're not ready for yet. For instance, in D&D, we don't recommend putting the full list of abilities on the simplified sheet. Just, like Allison said, their proficiencies or best skills. It's too long of a list visually for most players to feel comfortable with. If you need a player to make a check that they're not proficient in, say an intimidation check, then you as the DM can reference their full sheet behind your screen and say, roll your d20 and add 1. This simplifies gameplay for them and also keeps the game moving. We also recommend taking out special abilities that have complex directions, like, say, a cleric's channel divinity features. If you get to a point in the story where something like that might be helpful, you as the DM can always say, hey, you actually also have an ability that could cure this person, or that could make this zombie run away, and then walk them through the mechanics of that ability. Remember, you're not the player's antagonist, especially for kids and for new players. So offer them as much help as you can from their full character sheets. You can also consider taking out placement-related battle abilities that use things like half cover or prone or grapple. Anything that takes more than 7 words to explain on a simplified character sheet is probably going to be too complex for a player to care about. Note that we're not saying that kids can't understand complex rules. They definitely can. But visually, the purpose of a character sheet is to help a player know what they can do, not give them an encyclopedic compendium of the arcane. Anything on the sheet that doesn't spark joy, that feels more like research than play, or is going to distract a player from being present at the table, that needs to go. Because remember, you as the DM have all of those rules and stats with you behind the screen.
And now it's time for your 4 bonus tips. Tip number 1, involve the kids as much as possible. Even if this means just talking to the kid about what they envision for their character, and then the DM going through the player's handbook to figure out how to make that fit on a character sheet. Even if you're using pre-made character sheets, get the kids to draw their character. That way they'll have some more sense of ownership and be more likely to feel engaged in the story. Tip number 2, symbols are your friends. For young players ages 5 and under who are pre-readers, you definitely want to have symbols on your character sheets. Something like a heart for hit points and a shield for armor class are really easy to draw on your character sheet and help your player remember what that number means. You can even ask the kids what symbol you think you should draw for some of the other statistics. For those very young players, we only use hit points, armor class, a condensed list of 3 abilities, body, mind, and social skills, and 2 choices for actions. That really gets them understanding the flow of TTRPGs before they can take on more. Speaking of take on more, tip number 3 is to add more complexity as your players seem ready. Take the cues from them. If they start asking more questions or being a little more creative in battle, maybe they are ready for more information about their character and the skills and abilities they can use, or more choices. Tip number 4, finally, if you still feel like you need help, we've got your back. The Kids Table has created a simple character sheet converter in an Excel spreadsheet. If you download this Excel spreadsheet, input all the information in a typical 5e character sheet, it will spit out for you a printable, simplified character sheet that's already done. You don't have to think about it at all. If even that is too much to figure out, then we also have a player character pack designed for kids, including 6 different characters that come in both the 5e and the matching simple sheet version. I hope that helps you get started on your adventures. To learn more about playing D&D with kids, check out the other videos in this series or our actual play campaign with kids at the table. The Kids Table, because when kids are at the table, everyone wins.